She was 8 weeks old when they brought her home, a tiny gray kitten with storm-colored fur and eyes that hadn't decided what color they wanted to be yet. They named her Luna, and for the first 3 weeks, nobody in that house touched her. Not once. She hid behind the washing machine. She hid under the bed frame. She hid inside an old shoebox in the closet, pressed so far into the corner that her tiny heart beat like a drum against the cardboard. They started to wonder if she would ever come out at all. But something was happening in that shoebox that nobody could see yet, something that would take months to reveal itself. And when it finally did, it would leave grown adults standing in a hallway with their hands over their mouths. Because this is not just a story about a scared kitten. This is a story about what happens when patience meets fear, night after night until fear simply runs out of room to hide. Luna came from a small litter of 5. Her brothers and sisters were loud, confident, always first at the food bowl. Luna was the one who flinched at raised voices, the one who sat backward when someone reached for her, the one the breeder almost didn't place at all because she worried nobody would want a kitten who trembled at the sound of a closing door. The breeder warned Claire before she signed the papers. She said, "This one isn't like the others. She might never be a lap cat. Some of them just aren't built that way." Claire took her anyway. She didn't know why exactly. Maybe because Luna was the only kitten in the room who didn't come running when the carrier opened. Maybe because being chosen last felt strangely familiar. The woman who adopted her was named Claire, 34 years old, lived alone in a small apartment on the 3rd floor. She worked from home, and the silence of her apartment had started to feel less like peace and more like an empty room waiting to be filled. She thought a cat would help. She did not expect the cat to be more afraid of her than she had ever been afraid of anything in her life. The first night, Luna did not touch her food until 3 in the morning. Claire knew because she woke to the faint sound of kibble hitting the bowl. When she peeked around the corner, she saw a small gray shape freeze mid-bite and vanish into the dark before she could even whisper hello. Claire did not chase Luna out from behind the washing machine. She did not scoop her up and force her onto her lap. Instead, she sat down on the kitchen floor every evening and read out loud from whatever book she was in the middle of. She left small pieces of chicken near the closet door, then walked away without watching to see if they disappeared. Days passed, then a week, then 2. Luna did not come out for Claire, not directly, but the chicken disappeared every single time. On the 9th night, Claire looked up from her book and saw 2 small eyes watching her from the hallway. She did not move. She did not speak. She simply kept reading, her voice low and steady, until the eyes disappeared again into the dark. It took 19 days before Luna sat in the same room as Claire without hiding. It took 26 days before Claire let her hand rest near her, close but not touching. And it took 31 days before Luna, for the very first time, pressed the top of her head against her fingers instead of pulling away from them. Claire cried that night, not because it was sad, because she finally understood what patience could do if you just refused to give up on something small and frightened. If you're already rooting for Luna the way I am, go ahead and hit that subscribe button right now, because what happened 3 months later is the entire reason I'm telling you this story tonight. The weeks turned into months, and Luna changed in ways that surprised even Claire. She started sleeping at the foot of the bed instead of inside the closet. She started following Claire from room to room, always a few careful steps behind, like a small gray shadow learning to trust the person casting it. She learned the sound of Claire's alarm clock and would appear at the bedroom door before it even finished ringing. She learned which mug Claire used for coffee and would sit beside it on the counter every morning, waiting. Small things, quiet things, the kind of things only someone paying close attention would ever notice. Then one evening, Claire came home from the grocery store and stopped at her own front door, key still in her hand, because of what she saw through the window. Luna was standing upright on her hind legs, front paws pressed flat against the glass, staring down the stairwell exactly where Claire's footsteps would appear. Not sitting, not crouching, standing, the way a person stands when they are waiting for someone they love. Claire's neighbor later told her that Luna had been standing there for almost 20 minutes before Claire ever came into view. Every single evening after that, it was the same. The sound of the building's front door 2 floors down, Luna up on her back legs, watching, waiting, refusing to look away until she saw Claire's face. It didn't matter if it was raining, or if Claire came home late, or if the stairwell light was flickering and dim. Luna was always there first, already in position, as if some quiet clock inside her simply knew. The kitten who once could not be touched for 31 days now stood at a window every single evening, like a sentry who had chosen her one person and would not be moved. One evening, Claire tested something. She came home an hour late on purpose, sitting in her car outside the building just to see what would happen. When she finally walked up the stairs, Luna was still there, paws pressed to the glass, not 1 second less alert than she would have been on time. She hadn't given up, she hadn't wandered off to sleep, she had simply waited for as long as it took, because that was what Luna did now. Claire began to notice other things too. If she was sick, Luna stayed pressed against her side for hours, not moving, not asking for food, just present. If Claire cried, Luna would climb onto her chest and stay there until the crying stopped. If a stranger knocked on the door, Luna would place herself between Claire and the sound, ears back, body low, refusing to run this time. Even the mail carrier noticed her, peeking through the window every afternoon at the exact same time, as if she kept her own private schedule of who was allowed near the door and who wasn't. Claire started joking that Luna had appointed herself head of security, and honestly, nobody in the building disagreed. The cat who was too afraid to be touched had become the one thing in Claire's apartment that never, ever left her side. People sometimes ask Claire why she didn't return Luna in those first difficult weeks, when nothing seemed to be working, when the kitten wouldn't eat in front of her and wouldn't come near her hands. Claire always gives the same answer. She says, because something scared doesn't mean something broken, it just means something that hasn't been shown yet that it's safe. That's the part we forget when we choose our animals. We want them confident right away. We want them affectionate on day one. But real trust, the kind that stands on 2 legs at a window every single evening for you, is built one quiet night at a time. It cannot be rushed and it cannot be forced. It can only be earned, slowly, by someone who refuses to give up. So many animals get returned in those first difficult weeks, labeled shy, labeled difficult, labeled not a good fit. Nobody writes down how close they were to becoming something extraordinary because nobody stayed long enough to find out. Claire stayed. That was the only difference between a cat who hides in a shoebox forever and a cat who stands guard at a window every single night of her life. Luna is almost 2 years old now. She still stands at that window every evening. She still presses her head into Claire's hand the same way she did on day 31, except now it happens 100 times a day instead of once. The kitten who could not be touched for 31 days now stood at a window every single evening like a sentry who had chosen her one person and would not be moved. So tell me honestly, would you have had the patience to wait 31 days for a kitten who wanted nothing to do with you, or would you have given up long before day 9? Let me know in the comments.